Witness Daniel's world, a complete animated exploration of his prophecies. What if I told you there was a story so powerful, so deeply interconnected with the threads of human history, that it could alter how you see everything, the world, yourself, and even time itself? Welcome to Witness Daniel's World, a complete animated exploration of his prophecies. Picture this, we're diving into a vivid, fully animated journey, where we explore the visions of Daniel, a man who stood at the crossroads of empires, speaking truth to kings while unraveling mysteries of divine proportions. You, yes, you, are not just watching history unfold, you are part of it. Daniel's prophecies were not merely predictions, they were an invitation, a divine call to see the eternal in the fleeting, the infinite in the finite, and the sacred in the ordinary. I want you to imagine for a moment being in Daniel's sandals. A young man, exiled in a foreign land, far from home, stripped of power, yet rising to prominence by his wisdom and unshakable faith. Can you feel it? The tension between his vulnerability as a human and the strength of his divine insight? Now let's pause. If you could peer beyond time and see the full picture of history, your life included, how would that change the way you live today? Daniel did just that. His visions painted pictures of empires rising and falling, of kings being weighed and found wanting, of a mysterious figure called the Son of Man, and of a time when all things would be made right. What makes these visions extraordinary is their precision and their universality. They don't just speak of ancient Babylon or Persia, they whisper truths about every human empire, every personal struggle for meaning, every longing for justice. As we journey together, we'll explore three layers of his prophecies: the historical, the symbolic, and the personal. And trust me, these aren't separate, they're intricately woven. Daniel's words echo through the ages because they are about us. For instance, let's revisit the fiery furnace, a moment of unparalleled courage. Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego, facing a king's wrath, stand firm, declaring, "Even if our God does not save us, we will not bow." Can you imagine having that kind of clarity in a world that demands you conform, compromise, and bow? How often do we, without realizing it, bow to the idols of our age: success, approval, fear of missing out? But here's the twist. The miracle isn't just their deliverance, it's the fourth figure in the flames. Who was that? Was it divine? Was it a foreshadowing? And what does it mean for you and me when we face the flames of life, loneliness, failure, loss? Let's dig deeper. Daniel's interpretation of Nebuchadnezzar's dream, the colossal statue of gold, silver, bronze, iron, and clay, isn't just a roadmap of ancient empires, it's a metaphor for the fragility of human systems. Think about it. We build structures, economic, political, relational, that seem indestructible. Yet, like the feet of clay, they crumble under pressure. The stone that shatters the statue? It's not just divine intervention, it's a wake-up call. What are the feet of clay in your life? What's the cornerstone you need to build on? And then there's the writing on the wall. Can you picture the scene? A drunken feast, golden vessels defiled, and a hand appearing out of nowhere to inscribe words that no one can understand. Mean, tekel, parsin, counted, weighed, divided. Isn't that the ultimate human fear, that our days are numbered, our lives weighed, and our legacies scattered? But here's the beauty of Daniel's world: it doesn't leave us in fear. It calls us to align with a greater narrative. One where the Ancient of Days sits on the throne. Where kingdoms rise and fall but love and justice endure. Let's take a moment. Do you feel the weight of your life being weighed? What if it's not about being enough but about aligning with something, someone, greater? The Prophecies crescendo with a vision of 70 weeks. Cryptic yet stunning in its implications. It's a timeline pointing to the Anointed One cut off yet victorious. It's a story of redemption breaking into history. Not as a distant event but as a present reality. Think about this. What if redemption isn't just about a future hope but about transforming the present, your relationships, your priorities, your heart? Now let's talk about the beasts, those strange, terrifying creatures emerging from the sea. They symbolize empires. Yes. But more profoundly, they represent the chaos that threatens to consume us. Daniel sees them not as the end but as the prelude to a kingdom of peace. And here's where it gets personal. What are the beasts in your life? Fear? Regret? Addiction? The promise of Daniel's vision is that these beasts don't have the final say. The Son of Man riding on the clouds speaks of a kingdom where love conquers fear, where peace silences chaos. As we close this first part, let me leave you with this thought: Daniel's world isn't just his, it's ours. His visions aren't just about kings and empires, they're about you and me. About the choices we make, the faith we hold, and the hope we carry. What would it mean for you to live as if the Son of Man were already reigning? As if the Ancient of Days had already weighed and found you worthy, not because of what you've done but because of who you are? From lions' dens to heavenly courts, the triumph of faith over fear. Close your eyes for a moment and imagine being in complete darkness, surrounded by the low, menacing growls of lions. You hear their paws shuffle across the dirt. Feel their breath as they edge closer. But instead of panic, your heart remains still. You're not trembling. Why? Because you know you're not alone. This is where we find Daniel, thrown into the lion's den. Not as a punishment for wrongdoing but for unwavering faith. How often do we find ourselves in metaphorical lions' dens? Maybe it's a hostile workplace, a relationship on the brink of collapse, or the crushing weight of expectations. And yet, Daniel's story reminds us, faith transforms fear into courage. Not by removing the lions but by silencing their power over us. But let's rewind. How did Daniel end up here? It wasn't by accident. It was his consistency. Day after day, he knelt and prayed, facing Jerusalem, refusing to let the shifting sands of politics or fear dictate his devotion. Think about your own life. What are the laws of the Medes and Persians that pressure you to conform, to hide, or to compromise? And what would it look like to stay true to your deepest values, no matter the cost? Here's the kicker: Daniel wasn't trying to be heroic. He was just being faithful. And that's where the power lies, not in grand gestures but in quiet, steady obedience. Now, let's focus on the lions. The narrative tells us that an angel shut their mouths. Miraculous. Yes. But also deeply symbolic. These lions represent more than a physical threat, they embody fear itself. The kind that prowls in the shadows of our minds, whispering doubts and insecurities. Yet Daniel's faith was the key to silencing them. Pause for a moment. What are the lions in your life? The fears that keep you up at night? What would happen if, like Daniel, you chose faith over fear? As the dawn breaks and Daniel emerges unscathed, we see a reversal of fortunes. The very enemies who sought his demise fall into their own trap. It's a sobering reminder that injustice has a way of undoing itself. The deeper message here is justice, not just earthly but divine. Do you believe in a justice that transcends human systems? One that sees every hidden act of kindness, every quiet moment of courage? Now, let's transition to another profound moment in Daniel's journey, the vision of heavenly courts. Here, Daniel sees thrones set in place and the Ancient of Days taking his seat. It's a scene of pure majesty, one that strips away the pretenses of earthly power. The kings and empires that seemed so invincible are revealed as fleeting shadows compared to the eternal kingdom. Imagine standing in that court. Your life laid bare. Every moment. Every decision. How does that make you feel? Is it fear? Or is it awe? The vision continues with the arrival of the Son of Man coming on the clouds. This figure is given authority, glory, and sovereign power. And here's the twist: the kingdom isn't about domination, it's about restoration. It's not built on fear but on love. Not on oppression but on freedom. And this isn't just a prophecy about the distant future, it's an invitation for the present. What if you lived as if the Son of Man was already reigning in your life? How would it change the way you treat others? The way you handle challenges? The way you see yourself? Let's bring this down to earth with a practical question. What does faith over fear look like in your daily life? Is it choosing forgiveness over resentment? Speaking truth when it's easier to stay silent? Taking a leap of faith when the outcome is uncertain? As the vision unfolds, we see a tension between the beasts, the empires that rise and fall, and the eternal kingdom. The beasts roar, but their power is limited. The Ancient of Days, calm and sovereign, remains unshaken. It's a stark contrast, isn't it? The noise of the world versus the stillness of eternity. Which voice are you listening to? Daniel's world challenges us to shift our perspective. To see life not as a chaotic series of events but as a story with meaning, purpose, and direction. Even in the lion's den, even in the face of empires, Daniel lived with a quiet confidence. Why? Because he wasn't just looking at the present, he was anchored in the eternal. Here's the takeaway: courage doesn't mean the absence of fear, it means acting despite it. Faith doesn't remove the lions, it redefines them. And justice, true justice, doesn't always come on our timeline. But it always comes. As we conclude this part, think about this. What would it mean for you to live as if the Ancient of Days were sitting on the throne? As if every challenge were just a shadow of the greater story unfolding? Visions of eternity, living today with the eyes of tomorrow. Imagine standing on the edge of a vast, endless desert. Every grain of sand beneath your feet feels timeless, ancient. Above you, the stars burn with a brilliance that speaks of eternity. You take a breath, and in that moment, you realize, this is what Daniel saw, not just visions of the future but glimpses of eternity breaking into the present. Daniel's prophecies are not confined to the rise and fall of empires or cryptic symbols of beasts and horns. They are a cosmic tapestry, weaving together the struggles of nations, the cries of individuals, and the eternal purpose of a creator who refuses to let chaos have the final word. Take a moment to ask yourself, how often do you see life through the lens of eternity? Are you caught in the temporary? Or can you glimpse the timeless truths that Daniel saw? One of the most profound aspects of Daniel's visions is their duality. They speak to the grand stage of history while whispering truths into the intimate corners of our lives. For instance, the 70 weeks prophecy isn't just about timelines and the arrival of the Anointed One. It's about restoration. About brokenness being made whole. About a world groaning for redemption finally finding its voice in love and justice. Think about your own life. Where do you see brokenness? Is it in relationships? In your own heart? In the systems that surround you? And what would it mean to believe that restoration is not just a distant hope but a present reality breaking into the here and now? Daniel's vision of the four beasts rising from the sea, each more terrifying than the last, forces us to confront a difficult truth: chaos is real. Empires rise, driven by greed and violence. People suffer under their weight. But chaos, as Daniel reveals, is not the end. Above the roaring seas and the monstrous empires stands the Ancient of Days. Unshaken, unyielding. What does this mean for us? It means that while the storms rage, we have an anchor. While the beasts roar, there is a voice that speaks peace. And while chaos threatens to consume, there is a kingdom that endures. Pause for a moment. What are the storms in your life? What are the beasts that seem too powerful to face? And can you imagine, even for a second, that beyond them stands a throne, a symbol of unshakable hope? Let's go further. Daniel's vision of the Son of Man is one of the most breathtaking moments in his narrative. This figure, both human and divine, receives authority over all nations. His dominion is everlasting, and his kingdom will never be destroyed. It's a picture of ultimate victory. But it's not the kind of victory the world expects. The Son of Man doesn't conquer with violence or power as we understand it. Instead, he rules with humility, love, and truth. His kingdom isn't built on conquest but on restoration. And here's the mind-blowing part: this kingdom isn't just something we wait for, it's something we're invited to be part of. Think about that. If you're called to be part of this kingdom, what does that mean for how you live now? How do you treat others, especially those who are different or difficult? How do you approach your work, your passions, your struggles? Daniel's world reminds us that every choice we make, every act of love or kindness, every moment of faith in the face of fear, echoes into eternity. But let's not sugarcoat it. The path isn't easy. Daniel himself faced lions, betrayal, exile, and the weight of visions too heavy to bear. And yet, he remained faithful. Why? Because he saw the bigger picture. Do you? As we approach the climax of Daniel's prophecies, we encounter the ultimate battle, the clash between the kingdoms of men and the kingdom of God. The forces of chaos seem overwhelming. The little horn, a symbol of arrogance and oppression, rises, speaking words of defiance. But even this is temporary. The Ancient of Days takes his seat. The court is convened, and judgment is passed. This isn't just a story of destruction, it's a story of renewal. The beasts are stripped of their power, and the kingdom is handed over to the saints, the humble, the faithful, the ones who stood firm in the face of fear. And that includes you. What would it mean to live as a saint in today's world? Not in the sense of perfection but in the sense of faithfulness, of courage, of choosing love over fear, justice over apathy, hope over despair. Daniel's visions end not with defeat but with victory, not the victory of might but the victory of right. The Ancient of Days is still on the throne. The Son of Man still reigns. And the invitation still stands. As we close this journey, let me ask you, what legacy do you want to leave? When your life is weighed, what will it reveal? And what would it look like to live not just for today but with the eyes of tomorrow? With the vision of eternity guiding your steps? Because here's the truth, you don't need to wait for the future to experience the kingdom. It's here. Now. In every act of love. Every moment of faith. Every choice to see the eternal in the ordinary. So, step into Daniel's world. Witness the visions. Embrace the call. And live a life that echoes into eternity. What will you choose?